Lavette, whenever you are ready, you have the spotlight. Go right ahead.
Thank you very much. Actually, what I wrote is that I am Lavette W. Harper, but I guess everybody here knows that. So I've just said it again, and I'm really happy to bring some of the history of Kwanzaa to you, and also to say a few words about why we celebrate this. But just before any of that, I would like for you to know that we used to do this at our church. And we used to have it in the fellowship hall right after a service. And Jackie Tutt was the person in charge. And we had quite a program. And we always used to wear African attire. And there were a number of cultural presentations. So for those who were not here at that time, I just want you to know a little bit of the history of First Congregational. Now, Kwanzaa is an African American holiday, and it's celebrated from December 26th to January 1st every year. It intertwines African traditions with American customs. Kwanzaa was created in 1966 by the eminent scholar, Dr. Maulana Karenga, who is, or he was then, a professor and chairman of the Department of Black Studies at the University of Long Beach. He taught other subjects as well. Dr. Karenga was also head of a national organization called US, presented, and at the time that he presented the idea of Kwanzaa to the African diaspora. And it was as a means of rediscovering and restoring our cultural roots. Whenever I say our or we, I am talking about African American people. And of course, he wanted to bring out more emphasis on African heritage. Now, Dr. Karenga was influenced and really considered to do this while he was volunteering with a group of youngsters after the so-called riots in Watts, California. And it had been suggested, or it had been brought out that these young kids were doing lots of things that they should not be doing. In other words, sort of criminal activity if they were adults. But the children were doing these things. Dr. Karenga discovered in working with these children that most of them were poor, but not only poor economically, but they had little or no self-pride. They knew very little African American or Black history and had, he found with that group, no knowledge of their African heritage. And of course, being the professor that he was with all of his background, that just was very, very hard for him to take. So he began to teach them these things. The idea of Kwanzaa was developed to meet those needs. Plus, of course, countering the over-commercialization of Christmas, which most of those families could not afford. The name Kwanzaa is derived from the Swahili language phrase, Matunda ya Kwanza, with one A at the end of Kwanzaa, which means really, almost literally, first fruits in the Swahili language, and what they did, the celebration that we have is similar to celebrations in many countries, certainly in the African countries where they have agriculture as the main occupation, because people celebrate happily at the end of the harvest season. Everybody is very glad for these so-called first fruits. So that is what we are doing. We call ours first fruits, and we celebrate them by placing on the Kwanzaa table Many of these crops, I hope that you can see this, and we have apples and oranges, pumpkins, sweet potatoes, and so forth, and they are called the mazao, these crops. But in addition, on the Kwanzaa table, we have ears of corn, and that's very important. I'm telling you about some of the symbols now of Kwanzaa. So we have the crops, we have special attention to the corn because they represent the children and of course our future. If you do not have children in your family, you would still place some corn on your table to represent children of the community. And Kwanzaa is very, very important in terms of representing community. The name Kwanzaa, as I said, is derived from the Swahili word meaning first fruits. So we include fruits along with these vegetables. Now, each family Kwanzaa in its own way, more or less, but the celebrations always include some of these things: songs and dances, African drums, storytelling, and African American people can always, in every community, has someone who is a professional storyteller. I think we have a few in our church, but the number one would be Priscilla Crummell. But she's an actress too, of course. She tells hers by being a famous actress. So we have that at Kwanzaa time. Poetry reading, and of course we love poetry reading. And on the last day of Kwanzaa, of course, there is the large traditional meal. And right now I'm going to tell you what's included. So this is a menu from the library where we have a big community Kwanzaa program. And this is typical: African stew, black-eyed peas and rice, cornbread, corn pudding, a fruit platter, cookies of different kinds, sweet potato bar, and a beverage. That is pretty much typically the menu that you would have. And I have said to groups, remember, you don't have to be ashamed anymore to say that your family likes collard greens and cornbread. Well, look, this is famous now. And this is a part of our culture. So just be proud of that. Sweet potato pie to this country, and many other foods too. And I can give you a long list of those if you're interested. Now, I said that each one celebrates a little bit differently. So of the many things that I'm going to give you here, some of them are always celebrated. And I will start with the symbols of Kwanzaa. And they are these items that are on what I call a preset table. The Kwanzaa table before the date for celebrating is always set up. And we do that in our family early in December, as we do at the library also. Right here we have a mat, which is called the mkeka. All of the words are Kiswahili, of course. The Swahili language was chosen because there's several countries in Africa where that language is spoken, but the totality is, I think there are more countries and more populations in Africa that speak that particular language than any other one language. And of course, there are thousands of languages in Africa, spoken in Africa. Well, Swahili is spoken by a large number, mostly on East Africa. I was surprised to find them speaking that, many groups, thousands of them, even in as far north on the east side as Ethiopia. So we have the mat on which we place the other items. That's one of the symbols. I told you about the crops, and that's called the mazao. These are all Kiswahili words. We have the candle holder, which is called the Kanara, and the candlesticks, the Mishuma Saba, we must have 7 candles. These are all symbols of Kwanzaa. We have 3 reds, 1 black, and 3 green. Those are the Kwanzaa colors, red, black, and green. On the first night, the black candle is lit, and on subsequent nights, we go from one to the other. I hope you can see. First, 1 red, and then the third night, 1 green, the fourth night, another red, and so forth. And each night, one of these candles, when it's lit, the family discusses the principle that that candle represents. But right now, we're just doing the symbols. I'll tell you a little about the principles in a few minutes. We've seen the mkeka, which is the mat, the corn, the crops, the kanara, which is the candle holder, the candles, and a very important part of the Kwanzaa celebration, which is we teach the children, is the unity cup. It does not have to look like this. Of course, my family has always been very involved with Africa. You know, I was there many times. And the unity cup is used to pour libation. We use the water of life. And at the time that we pour libation, a little water from that cup into a live plant that's on the Kwanzaa table, and we say Ashe, Amen. We mention the name of an ancestor. Very often it is an ancestor, mostly ancestors who are very well known. We might say Mary McLeod Bethune, because we're right here in Florida, we remember her. Or we might say Frederick Douglass, or someone in our lifetime like John Lewis or Elijah Cummings. We might say Katherine Johnson, one of the so-called hidden figures. Or I might say my grandparents, because I have such wonderful memories, such loving people, and the things that they did in life. But as we pour the libation, people among the family or friends or in the library when we have it, people in the audience will just say the name of a person. That's a beautiful time during this celebration, remembering. It is also a time when names come up that children may not know, and parents may jot those names down. And here is an opportunity to teach Black history after this celebration is all over. Let's find out who this person was. Who was Frederick Douglass in our history? And who was Mary McLeod Bethune? What were their contributions? And what was Miss Johnson's contribution to the space age? And why did the astronaut say he wanted Mrs. Johnson to make the figures, and if it was safe for him to come back to Earth from the moon, then he would do it. So many opportunities come up during I love this celebration. So many opportunities. Of course, you know, I'm just a teacher, if nothing else. So I want to mention one other thing here. Is one of the symbols of Kwanzaa, and that's the zawadi, the gifts that we have, that we give away. Now mine, of course, are in a basket that I brought back from one of my trips. I think that was to Ethiopia, handmade by the women there. But the children's talents may not fit into that basket, but here is an opportunity to have them do some writing and stick it in the cup, that later there will be a gift, and they might have this left on the table. And the last night, they will give that gift, and maybe they will sing something that they know, or they will sing something they have composed, or read a poem that they have written. So the gifts, as I said, I think I said this, cannot be bought in Macy's. or any of the stores that they know, because we all have this. So you don't have to go out and buy wrapping paper and make a trip and go into debt for the gifts of Kwanzaa. You can make them right here at home. I would suggest that parents, I suggest this to them, that the parents at least buy some Scotch tape or maybe some papers, some colored papers, so that the young ones can make things out of paper, and maybe some pencils that they can, or colors that they can make their gifts with, but nothing expensive. Nevertheless, we make them feel that these are very valuable gifts to our family, to themselves, to our family, and to our community, because that is what Kwanzaa represents. And that is one of the reasons why we celebrate Kwanzaa. Well, of course, at my age, as I have said before, it is the only African American holiday that I've ever heard of. In this country, we have many, many holidays. But when we think about it, even the Martin Luther King Day off and so forth, those are not African American holidays. I'm not talking against them. I am just describing and saying the fact. All Americans, and we should celebrate MLK Day. But Kwanzaa is strictly African American, and we need that. We are fortunate to celebrate Kwanzaa because we get to reflect on our past. And these children, right on up through high school and young adults even, do not always have the opportunity in this society to reflect on their past. We are not always made to feel that our past, in fact, we were told that we have no history. We Black people in this country were told, you have no history. Here is an opportunity to do that and to make a connection with our African homeland in a positive way. This is what African people do. We talk about when democracy was first started. Well, did you ever learn in school that when representatives of all of these communities from miles around come together, one representative from each of those groups, and they sit under the tree and come to consensus, discuss the problems that they're having in their community or in neighboring communities, and come to a consensus about it? That was democracy. And that happened a long, long time ago in Africa. We can be proud of that, how these things were done. It is a time to learn and to teach young children and their families about the importance of respecting their elders. And when you learn to respect your own elder, you also learn to respect elders that are not necessarily blood relatives, but we are all connected. And so we respect our elders, which is one of the strong, strong African values. We learn how to strengthen our communities, and we learn a lot about our culture. Kwanzaa then provides a roadmap for doing these and other things, for living well together, for promoting love between people. And you don't have to be a blood relative to promote love among someone. When these men traveled for days to get to the meeting that was important to that region in which they lived in Africa, they were not so-called blood relatives, but we all have connections as human beings. And so we can learn to teach these things to our children and young people during the celebration, during the Kwanzaa celebration. Another reason I love it so much. It does provide a roadmap and how to get there. We begin with greater respect for our culture and our values. And we point out to children in teaching them African history, how many things are going on in this country now that we live in, things that we appreciate that actually had a connection to Africa and to us as African people who were brought here. So we celebrate for 7 days, lighting one of these candles each day, one each day, and each day represents one of the principles. Now, this is not a religious celebration. This is a cultural celebration. And it is estimated that between 13 and 20 million, depending on who you're reading, people in the world now celebrate Kwanzaa. And that includes the African Americans in this country, and in South America, of course, where there are more African Americans than there are in the United States, and people from the Caribbean and other places around the world. I don't know if I said this before, but we have thousands of people in the military all over where they're stationed all over the world, and they are celebrating Kwanzaa. So it is not a religious or political holiday. Therefore, people of all religions and beliefs, and those of no religion, come together to observe this unique African American holiday. Our focus is on the traditional African values of family, community, responsibility, commerce, and self-improvement. And if you have the opportunity to study it a little bit more, and I will give you some book lists also, you will find many of these things that have already been brought out in various Kwanzaa celebrations. These values are discussed, reflected upon, and reinforced every year to help children and families learn them and live by these positive rules. So the principles of Kwanzaa that you hear about are positive rules for living. And these values are inherited from the African philosophy of Kawaida, which also can be looked up. Now, I'm just going to show you one group of things about these principles. The 7 principles that I have talked about for helping us have a more positive life are called in the Swahili language the Ngaba. That's the 7 principles. You have seen the symbols. Now these are the principles. It's umoja. And if I say to you, if I call one of you from this 3 o'clock service meeting, Zoom meeting, and say Habaragani, this is, oh, sorry. If I do that, you answer that one for that day. If I call you the first day of Kwanzaa and say Habaragani, like, what's happening? You answer Umo, because that's the first day of Kwanzaa. The second day, it will be Kuja Chagulia. You don't have to memorize these because they are printed in many forms. I have had these particular ones for years and have them standing on my Kwanzaa table. And this big word means being you each day and expressing yourself in the very best way, just being your very best self. Then on the third day, the principle, and you see, I beg your pardon, if I've said before, you light a candle. You see, you would light a green candle. A candle for each one of these. Each day, there's a different candle. This one is Ujima, collective work and responsibility. And there's a lot more to say about that. One of the books I'm going to list for you, she has a chapter on each one of these principles. And there are words for you, all educated people there at the church, but there are explanations and examples for children to be taught The next one, with lighting one of the red candles, the principle is called Ujamaa. Ujamaa, cooperative economics. And there's a lot to describe how that can be, things to discuss in the family and the role that we can play. On the fifth day, it's Nia, and Nia is purpose. And there are pages and pages about that. Of course, you know it. You have to plan ahead. I forget now. You can tell me, someone said, if you don't make a plan, you plan to fail. If you fail to make a plan, you're planning to fail. Anyway, purpose is a very important one. They're all important. On the, it's Kuumba. I love these Swahili language words. Kuumba, and that represents creativity. When I first came to Sarasota the second year, I was given the honor of being one of the presenters under representing Kuumba, and how I had lived that life during that year that I had been here, and it represented creativity. And of course, I enjoyed that very much. It was my first time meeting so many people, and that was in a large recreation center at the time. The last one is Imani. So if I say to you, Habaragani, on the phone or some other way, you would answer Imani, and that means faith. Some of these words you may have heard, the names given to children in the last 40 years or so that we've had Kwanzaa around. These children have been named these, and they are very proud of those names too. So I know what's going on in that family, the discussions that they're having. So you've heard the symbols, you've seen the symbols, you've heard the names, the Swahili names of the principles. There's a lot more you can learn about it. And the gifts that can be given. Also, if you can afford, you always buy a book as a gift. We always get books for Kwanzaa, and anything. And of course, we get Scotch tape and paper. And if you have any questions, I would be happy to have you ask. And if not, I hope that you will enjoy attending one of the Kwanzaa celebrations. You can do that. Thank you very much. They're always open.
Yvette, I have a question.
Okay.
Behind you is a beautiful piece of fabric. Can you tell us what it is?
This kente cloth, I bought, let's see, I bought this in Kenya. Is this what you mean?
I meant the black one up against the wall.
Oh, that is, I think my son was an exchange. It's a South American country. Where was he? Valdivia, Chile. I think that's, you know, I had to cover up the books because they were distracting from my Kwanzaa table. It doesn't stay there, but it's really, you wear it. It's, you know what it's called in all those countries. I believe that is one from Chile. And it's like wool, it's so warm. But that's a part of me, the creativity, you know. Another question.
Marcia, go ahead, please, on this Sandy.
You're muted, Marcia.
Oh, hello, I thought you couldn't make it.
There you go.
Could you explain again how, in answering the telephone, is it the day you answer by what?
Yes, you answer by the name of the principal for that day. If you call on the 7th, if I call you on, someone calls you on the 7th day, Habaragani, you know, how are things? What's going on? As we say in this country, what's happening among Black folks? So your answer would be, and we do that. What's going on?
Are you going to call me Levette? I got to get those words.
Well, this is one, Imani. which means faith. And there's some people who name their daughters Faith, and then I love it. Because I think, oh, those parents really they're out there, they know something. Even those who say Ebony, I'm so proud of them. So I know she feels proud of herself. So Habaragani, and you give the name of the principal for that day. Umba, all right? Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Kiswahili.
I think Sandy Armstrong had a question, and then Priscilla. Oh, Sandy,
You're muted, Sandy.
Oh, you're muted, Sandy.
Look of curiosity.
You're muted.
Sorry, am I muted now?
No, you're
No,
good.
we can hear
Yeah,
you.
I don't even know if I can remember my question. I couldn't find my picture to find the unmute. Oh, gee. I have to say that I lost my question. I'll come back.
Okay. Priscilla had one. Please, Priscilla.
Okay, mine isn't the question. Mine is that I took home, this is I guess the first year we joined the church, Lavette invited us to her home for Kwanzaa. And although I was aware of Kwanzaa, I hadn't done the family gathering the way, because we had such a small family, and it was just very striking, very meaningful, and I always wished I could have had more of my family to join in. But it set a tradition in my mind to do this when we could. But at the library, when Lavette had chaired or led a Kwanzaa celebration, they gave everyone a piece of paper printed beautifully, elegantly, with all the principles. And I just thought, I know where they are. I saved them and I put them out on the table when we have set up our Kwanzaa table. So I don't know how long I've had them, but they've been precious. And I imagine the hundreds of people who have gone to these celebrations over the years that Lavette had led, I imagine they have kept theirs, and it's helped so much to bring more meaning to Kwanzaa.
Thank you. I see it as a teaching moment. Well, it's a teaching time. You have a whole week. Of course, you know me, I teach every day, all the time. And this is, among other things in my memoir materials, is a program, I think it was 2008, that says Lavette Harper will do a presentation of this holiday and discuss its history and principles. Parents will learn how to conduct a Kwanzaa ceremony, and children will learn how to participate. Refreshments will be served, of course, and a Kwanzaa craft will be provided. So I used to, at the library, I did that for 2 or 3 years, programs in the afternoon for young parents and parents and children together. And they learned how to set a table, Kwanzaa table, and how to conduct Kwanzaa. So it is a teaching tool, no question about it. I love it.
Sandy,
We always give out, we always have items to give away at a Kwanzaa. And I would like to tell you about one of, every year I have something, in the past, I've had something different for Kwanzaa, starting with the very first year, which was the first year that we moved to Croton-on-Hudson, New York, where I stayed for almost 30 years. And it was very cold and snowy and icy and couldn't get to I had invited people, wondered if they would come. And of course, everybody came, including someone who lives in Sarasota now named Sophia, who used to live up the road from us. And I could not get the fresh vegetables and fruits that I wanted for the mat, for the table. And so I had canned fruits and vegetables canned, so that we could have crops on. And so everybody could take something home. In my home here, for one of the Kwanzaa exhibits, Kwanzaa programs, we asked people to bring as their admission one piece of fruit or a vegetable. And we had a big basket at the door, and they placed that in it. And then when everybody left, they could take something out of that basket and take it home. And that was how we shared we always share something. So either the printed paper or one of the things. Thank you for bringing that up, Priscilla.
Yes.
Sandy Armstrong, did you remember your question?
Well, I think I have a different question, but I do have a question. Is it something that happens each night, or is there, I know the last is a feast, so that's probably a night, but on each day, are there different traditions about how the candles lit and what's celebrated, and is it a certain time of day?
No, each day is different. Each day represents the 7 days, the 7 principles, the divine sevens, 7 principles, 7 candles, and for each day there is a particular principle that is discussed. That is always the same. And one of the candles is lit. And so candles are lit one at a time for 7 days. We have 7 principles. We have 7 symbols. And I think that our pastor could probably tell us about things from the Bible about 7, right, Wes?
Amen.
And about other religions. And
I was asking, does it happen every evening? Does each principle?
every evening, yes.
Every evening, okay.
Yes. So that on Monday, we meet together, the family at dinner time, or you make a time, and you don't have to have it at dinner time. You can decide when, but the day is important because a particular principle is for that day. So it's up to you to select. Let's say we would do it at dinner time, at our dinner time, and have our, well, what can you tell us about what you might be doing, or what you think you might do all next year under that particular principle, or what did you do this past year? And for more than one of our parties, I would give out these strips, and people would select a strip. Now this one says Umoja, and you would just take one out of a cup that I had out of a basket, and when it was your turn to share with the people who had come, you would say how you have lived this principle during this year, or if you had not, how you think you might follow this principle in your life or with your family for next year. And we would go around.
Great.
That's one of the ways to be creative.
Any other questions as we wind down this part? Yeah, Lindsay, please.
I'm so interested in the parallels that I see with the Passover Seder, and the candelabra, lighting a candle. Well, actually, the candles of Hanukkah that we've just lit, or we are lighting, or the Jewish community is lighting. But with the Passover, the specific foods, the specific storytelling, the script, the symbolic food to tell the story, and the role of children in the Passover reminds me of the role of children in Kwanzaa, because it's and the songs. I don't know if there was any intentionality in that, but it just seems to be a very integrated concept of how to celebrate history, family, community, and have an annual event.
Yes, and I agree. And it's so important for the participants to learn as because we really want these young people to learn that these are things that have come down in their family, that they are a part of, that they are not marginalized. This is their heritage. And I like that very much.
Yeah, I like it very much too. Thank you so much for your presentation. It's very inspiring.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Lavette. And just a reminder, when I sent out the email, the African American Resource Cultural Center tomorrow has invited us to participate in their Kwanzaa. That starts at 5 o'clock. Am I correct on that, David and Lois? Lois?
That's correct. And the reason why I wanted you to hear from our queen, because it was because of Miss Harper that we decided to move here and volunteer at the AACRC, the place where she founded, with a lot of history. And one of the history celebrations is the Kwanzaa. And as a result, we hold Kwanzaa every year on one day, and we invite the community. And we invite people of different cultures and faiths and beliefs to celebrate with us. Tomorrow, if you haven't visited, and you can stop by the Betty J. Johnson Library, you will see in the vestibule area a video which is talking about the various symbols and principles that Ms. Harper just talked about. And if you care to come and join us, all you have to do is just, I sent the link to Pastor West, and he can pass that out to you. Yeah, but we really strongly encourage you to come. It's a very, we include, we have 2 high school students who will be participating on the program. We have some family members who will participate. We have Jim and Priscilla will be participating. We have Ms. Harper. Actually, I'm hoping she will do this tomorrow. You do know you were participating, right?
I just learned that.
Well, it's just that we just appreciate you so very much. And I don't know any other way to honor you, but to just tell you publicly what kind of an impact you've had on David and our lives. And one of the reasons that we don't play golf and tennis and sit out on the beach every day has a lot to do with the values, the core values and the principles that you shared about how you learned about Kwanzaa from your son, Peter, and how you faithfully have carried that tradition down through the years. And my heart is just so full thinking about that impact that you've had on us. And my family will be participating also tomorrow. They will be calling in from Chicago and wherever, and making their contributions. So I just want you to know that you are appreciated, and I want all of these people on them to know how much you mean to us. We love you very much. Oh, and Dr. Marcia Kendall Smith will be participating as well.
But I didn't know, your invitation said virtual. I didn't know people were going over to the center.
No, it is all virtual. It'll be on Zoom. So you'll have to play from your,
yeah. That I'm prepared to do.
Okay.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
So what she means is, I was just saying that we did go over to the library and make a presentation, but the library really isn't open or not full service. So I just wanted to, one of the last things that before Ms. Harper retired from the AACRC was she set up the Kwanzaa elements and the tables. And so we actually just made a video to go with that. So that's what I was saying if you had time. But the invitation you got is on Zoom. So please don't go drive over there for get on Zoom.